here with us today. She is, what your title?
Sure, I'm the Director of Development at Yala, and it's a nonprofit organization in San Diego that works with child survivors of war, refugee youth, and immigrant youth. And I do most of the development and fundraising there. Thanks for you guys.
And then through her, we currently have opportunities to tutor kids who have just moved here in math and reading. And then the hook is soccer. So then once you're tutoring them, you can also go and play soccer with them too. So we are also doing tutoring after school and coaching to help.
Olivia.
Yes.
Not part of the club. It's
But it's through Olivia. Yeah.
So for those of you who have tutored, please raise your hands. All right.
So that was over the summer that we all went. A bunch of us went. Exactly. And then
Any questions about tutoring, go ahead and ask them.
And then coaching is also through Olivia too for different things that they like.
Sure, and I have cards for you, so if you want to get in touch with me, I have cards for myself. You can visit our website, and then I also have a link for our Facebook page. You can get in touch with me through that.
So like we said, Olivia is the Director of Development at Yala. She just graduated from UCSB in June with a degree in International Relations and Political Science.
That's true.
While at UCSB, she started her own nonprofit initiative called Inspire a Child, which brought soccer fields and classrooms to children from war-torn countries around the world. And her work inspired Yala to recruit her right out of college. She was also awarded the Best Philanthropy at University of California, Santa Barbara for 2013. Olivia spent the summer in a Syrian refugee camp and joins us today to show us what the Yala kids have gone through before arriving to the United States. So it is my pleasure to introduce Olivia Wong.
It's really nice to see you guys. Thank you so much for coming out today. I'm really excited to be here because I get to take a piece of my summer and share it with you. And so the first thing I'm going to start with is, does anyone know where Syria is? Anyone? Okay, in the Middle East. Do you know what countries border Syria? Turkey, right, Turkey. That's good. Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan.
Israel.
Yeah, the major countries are Turkey, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon. So this summer, I was in a Syrian refugee camp called Zatchi. There's over 127,000 people in Zatchi. This makes it Jordan's 4th largest city. And it's really hard to actually conceptualize what 127,000 people look like. So I'm going to show it to you on a map. Okay, I'm wondering if anyone knows the zip code of this high school, or maybe your own address. What's the address of Scripps Ranch? 92131. Sorry, I heard like 4 answers.
92131.
Is that it? Okay. So the Syrian war has been going on for 3 years. It started in 2011 when the Bashar al-Assad's regime government started assaulting and slaughtering innocent civilians. This war has claimed the lives of millions of people, and now over 8.8 million people have been displaced. And it's really hard, I think, for me at least, to conceptualize what 8.8 million people look like when they don't have homes, when they have to flee from their houses and leave everything that they know behind. And so that's why I kind of want to show you what it looks like in the United States. So using this area code, we are going to look at what a displaced group of people would look like if it were in our own country. Okay, so when this loads, you'll see that there are 3 different colors. There's green, there's red, and the blue. Now I want you to focus on the green when it appears on the screen, because the green represents people who are under the age of 18. Is everyone under 18 here? Okay, yeah. Fantastic. So under the age of 18 and homeless. While that's loading, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what a refugee or an internally displaced person is. The acronym is the IDP. Does anyone know what a refugee is, or maybe have you ever heard of that term before? Yeah? Okay, so a refugee is a person who has been displaced forced to leave their home or country because it's way too unsafe to live where they are. It may be because there's a political conflict going on, an environmental disaster, civil strife, or persecution. We'll just wait for that to load. In the meantime, we'll go back to this. All right. Okay. So the SYRIAN refugee camp is home to 127,000 people or more. The numbers are so hard to ascertain because there are people flowing every single day from the south of Syria into Jordan into this camp. And half of those people are children. It's a really interesting phenomenon because in this camp it's mostly mothers and children. You may wonder, well, where are all the other people? Where are the elderly? Where are the men? Where are family units? Well, what happens is, while there's a civil war, many of the men, as young as 16 years old, so probably a lot of you guys in this room, would have to go fight. So a lot of people that I met who were 16 were entering into a draft for the Free Syrian Army. They're a rebel coalition that's been fighting against the regime of Bashar al-Assad. This is one of the images that we took at dusk, and this image was so difficult to take because after the lights come down at 5 p.m., there's thousands and thousands of people living in a camp without electricity or water. And so taking this image was actually really difficult to bring a camera into the camp and also being able to capture it at this time of day. Zatri is the second largest refugee camp in the world. When I met with the United Nations officers, they said it was indescribable. They've only seen instances like this, the danger, the type of conflict, the war, the atrocities that happened in Syria have surpassed what has happened in Rwanda and South Sudan. So this is an incredibly different and unique circumstance. Here's one of the images that was taken. I actually want to start at a story about a backpack. When I was there, one of my jobs was to allocate prefabricated housing units. So most people, when they leave, they have to leave without anything. They wait. Let me just give you a good example. All right. So I was talking to this woman. I was sitting in a tent, and let's say her name is Samara. And I asked her, so why did you have to leave so suddenly? Why did you become a refugee? And she said, with her hands in her face, I was just about to tuck my kids into bed one night. I have 3 children, all under the age of 6. And as she's leaning over, and she's about to kiss her kids goodnight, a plane flies overhead. The sound is really loud, it starts to shake the walls. And this is normal. There are a lot of planes flying overhead in Damascus, and Aleppo, and Dara. These are all cities in Syria. And as this plane flies overhead, the walls begin to tremble, and all of a sudden, the concrete and the metal start shaking and vibrating. In a split second, a bomb drops through the ceiling of her house, devastating everything. In a split second, her life completely changed. She reaches over to grab her children, all 3 of them, and without any type of chance to even think about what to do next, she runs out of the house. They grab a few things out of a collapsed dresser, and this is what they have, just a backpack for 3 kids. By the time she left the house, she couldn't even turn back. All of her extended family members in the house had already died. So she leaves her home in her neighborhood, and she sees people running outside of her house without documentation, no passport, aside from the backpack, no clothing, no shoes, no nothing. Could you imagine like having to sleep one night and just being woken up? What would you take with you? You have 30 seconds to decide. That's pretty much where a lot of families start. And so we started with that backpack, and she walked, I would say, maybe 200 miles, starting in Damascus, which is in the north of Syria, walking all the way down to the border with her 3 kids. She was also pregnant at the time, so you can imagine being 6 months pregnant, carrying another child, how difficult that is. Every single time she hears a plane, this is what she was reminded of. When I was there, I saw a lot of children. Again, I told you it was 50% of the camp are under 18 years old. And the reality is that water is so scarce. In the Middle East, water runs dry. And so it's a critical resource that many children fight to get. Every single day, kids have to walk wheelbarrows just to get water enough to feed their family. And that might mean lining up in front of this water tank all day just to get enough, maybe a gallon of water for their family. So this is still working, but we're going to go back to the slide. We'll come back to that later. I was working at the prenatal care ward with the United Nations while I was in the camp, and that meant working with children and mothers and elderly women who needed prenatal care. One of my jobs was to administer birth control and baby planning kits to young mothers. And I was just so shocked by what I saw. The conditions that I saw, people lining up every single day outside of this 8x8 aluminum shack in the arid desert, and I was working with no water, no electricity, and no air conditioning. This is one of the houses that I was working outside of, and every single morning when I went to the camp at 9 a.m., there'd be a huge, long line of women just waiting so that they could figure out what to do with their pregnant babies, or their pregnant themselves and their babies. I have a pretty curious story I want to tell you guys. When I was working there, I noticed that a lot of women would come in pretending to have a child in their hands. They would just come in and say like, oh, I'm pregnant, or I have a child, I just delivered a baby, and I need baby formula, I need powdered milk. And we'd be like, okay, so we're going to take you, document you, and then we'll give you an examination to see if you really need this ration of milk. And what I found is that a lot of women were just lying through their teeth and saying that they had this child in their hands and that they really needed the milk. And what we found is that a lot of the women were taking their baby formula rations to sell in the camp. And what that really essentially meant was they were using milk to try to buy currency for something else. And this led me to do a little bit more investigating, and so I started asking around and talking to other people and aid workers in the camp, trying to figure out why are these women selling their baby formula, buying and selling baby formula. What I found was that there's a huge problem, and it's all about identification. When people enter the camp, their identifications are removed. They basically don't have an ID. They don't have a driver's license or a passport or any symbol that says, I am this person. You basically lose your identity. And so what's happening is when the IDs are taken, whether it be from the Jordanian police or the United Nations, people are trying to fight to get their identities back. And so I found mothers selling this milk so that they could buy their IDs back. And there's this huge underground market that's going on there. There's a lot of corruption, a lot of extortion, a lot of really terrible things like rape. There's an incredible level of fear and uncertainty that runs rampant in the camp. This is one of the images of the shelters that we were able to purchase and deliver to the families. A lot of them, especially in the wintertime when it gets really cold like now, it's snowing incredibly. There's a lot of snow and there's a lot of rain. And what happens is living in a tent that doesn't protect you from those extreme weather conditions. And so having this type of housing is really important so that young children can survive through winter. Now, it may look pretty dire, the circumstances there, but there's a lot of hope. And there's so many people that I met with amazing, resilient personalities and attitudes about the future. And one of the things that I loved the most while being in this camp was seeing the excitement that kids had to play soccer. It was the one thing that kind of just let them be normal again. It allowed them to gain a sense of normalcy in their lives so they can live the next day and be excited later. Because life in the camp is not temporary. It's a very permanent reality for a lot of families that enter into it. Most people think they're only going to be around for a month or 3 months, but most people end up living for 8 to 12 years in a camp like this. Soccer is a really great way to rebuild your life and kind of step out of the craziness of war and chaos. So when I was on the street, actually, I saw this little kid sitting right here, and I was wondering, what do children do? They live in a camp where there's not a lot of activities, there's not a lot of classrooms. How do they get engaged? How do they become active again? And I saw kids running and sprinting after a little soccer ball made out of trash. And I thought, this is incredible. Soccer has the ability to make children feel like they can be safe. It gives them a chance to rebuild their lives and feel like they can, have another childhood again. So, here's another photo one of my friends took. You can see the tents behind us. And the water situation is really by the barrel. There's no running tap, and sometimes when I was actually there, a lot of the taps would just run dry, and then you'd have to run to the other side of the camp and try to find water. Here's some of the children that I was with. They're so resilient in the sense that even though they've lost loved ones and the people who are supposed to protect them, they're so excited and they're so full of life, and there's a lot of hope and optimism that things will get better. This is one of my favorite photographs, playing with children at camp. Let's see. And this is a boy that I met when I was playing soccer. We were out there on this grass field, and there's only a little bit of grass, and the rest is just pretty much dirt and dry gravel. And so this boy was standing here, kind of just in a very pensive state. And he just seemed like he was thinking about something. And we were wondering what was happening, because he was the only person standing in this barren field while everyone else was playing at least 100 meters away. And so we walk over to him and we ask, what's going on? What are you doing? And an aid worker walks by and he says, all of this fresh dirt was tilled because we had to create mass graves for people who died in the camp. And they're mostly children who died because they're all under the age of 5. And they died from disease, from not having enough water, not having enough food. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're standing on top of a grave right now. And we wonder what's going on in this child's mind. And my friend, who's a photojournalist, he wrote this quote in an article about this boy. He said, "We'd been told earlier that this was the location of a mass grave for the camp. I walked towards him and sat down, about 1.5 meters away. He didn't move. My colleague asked him in Arabic if he was grieving for a loved one. He said nothing, and he just stared at the ground." It was a really shocking and emotionally jarring memory for me. I remember that I didn't know what to think when I was there. It was just, there was so much fear and uncertainty. And there was a lot of tension, because the camp is so unsafe. It's so hard to rebuild a life. And there isn't a lot of support for people to regain a sense of trust in the government, because the government has been completely annihilating all civilians who are living in towns and villages and cities in Syria. It's so bad in the camp that some people actually board a bus at 5 p.m. every single day trying to get back into Syria, back into this war-torn country. The camp, by the way, it's in Jordan. It's a neighboring country in the south. And so what I found was every time I would walk past the gates where I would enter the camp at 5 p.m., there were men from just jumping into these buses trying to go back. And so the reason why I'm showing you these images of the camp is not really to make you feel sad or scared or make you feel dismal about the future, because this doesn't have to be the reality for a lot of children and women. In fact, it isn't. Some families are really lucky and they don't have to stay in this refugee camp. What happens is they apply for refugee status with the United Nations, and some are granted this amazing opportunity to relocate to a different country. And sometimes some of those people relocate to San Diego. San Diego is actually the largest refugee resettlement city in California and compares to other cities in the United States. I work with many of these children who don't have to live a life in a refugee camp like this. And it's incredible because it's a chance to rebuild your life. And so after leaving a war, starting from that scene or a bomb drops in the top of your house and breaks through your ceiling, to walking thousands of miles, from different countries into a refugee camp, escaping that, getting refugee status to the United Nations, and resettling in San Diego. Well, that's an incredible feat and something to celebrate. And so that's why we work so diligently with children who have escaped and survived war in San Diego. We have soccer, education, and ecotherapy programs, and all of our students have gone through very similar circumstances to this camp, but are rebuilding their lives. There's a lot of hope. They live in El Cajon in East County, and we work with them on a day-to-day basis so that they can, have a real childhood and potentially grow up and go to college and have experiences like that we do here in the United States. I'm wondering if that map is going to come up. It'd be great to show you guys. Let's see. It's still working. That's all right. I wonder if I can show you. Let's see. One of these. Oh, here's a map. Okay, that's a little better. So you can see Syria's here. It doesn't border Israel. Sorry, big try though earlier. But it's bordering Iraq and Lebanon, and this is where I was, where A is. That's where the camp is. So most people are leaving from Damascus and walking south to the border. And well, if I don't get a chance to share this to you today, please check it out at projectsaljazeera.com/2013 Syrian refugees. That would be a really great, map so you can actually see. But basically, I can show you, if you take a look at the map right here of Los Angeles, and this is Los Angeles, it spreads all throughout the Central Coast, all the way down to San Diego and past Santa Barbara. So you can imagine if you were under 18 years old, and homeless, this is what your population would look like. That means walking outside of this room right now, seeing everyone within the vicinity, all the way to Tijuana, being homeless and under the age of 18. That's pretty much what it looks like when you get down into the Syrian refugee camp areas in Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. So, I talked a lot about what goes on in the camp. I'm wondering if anyone's interested in learning about what happens after the camp when people come to San Diego. Can you imagine what it's like coming to San Diego? What do you think it's, as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, you experience?
Overwhelming.
Yeah, feelings of being overwhelmed. That's a really great way to explain it. Some of the things that students experience is going into a high school, not speaking any English, and then taking a class. If you were to take a class, let's say, I don't know, AP World History in Spanish, how would that work? That would probably be pretty difficult, right? Well, that's really the reality for students who we work with on a day-to-day basis in East County. So how many people have volunteered with Yala or worked with Let's Go Scripps Ranch, been with the kids, yeah? Does anyone want to explain a little bit about what it's like? Or talk about maybe one of the students that they remember?
You gotta call him.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, thank you guys for listening to my presentation. I just want to let you know that we have cards up here if you'd like to get involved with us or learn more about what's going on. But it's an incredible experience that I went through in the summer, And one of the reasons why I'm here with Yala is because we can make a difference after children, relocate and they don't have to be in this camp anymore. So thank you a lot. I appreciate your time, and I hope you guys
Thank you, Olivia, for showing us what it's like to be in a refugee camp. She's right, now it's our turn, they're on our turf, it's our turn to take care of these refugee kids. So just hope you guys had a good club day. This was nice to kick off the new semester.
And we hope you guys can really start getting involved in everything that's happening to help support all the kids. And